Hi, today I want to talk about a great product I have at home for just about any use. It is my favorite Candida product. It's very cost effective, very easy to do, and it's called Himalayan Salt. I have been using Himalayan Salt for all types of infections and issues for a long time, and I have a great story to tell about it. This is what the Himalayan Salt chunks look like. The chunks work a lot better than the granulated for this particular purpose. And this is a mason jar with my personal salt soleil that's been diluted in water. When I sell the Himalayan salt, I send it with instructions. There's a great book you can purchase on Amazon called Water and Salt, and it's all the disinfectant uses of salt that, I mean, literally anything and everything. If you think about parasites or candida, bacteria, Lyme disease, I mean, there's so many things that salt is good for. The Himalayan salt is also high in nutrition, it's high in minerals. And a lot of people, I mean, I guess salt has gotten a bad rap, but when people are talking about salt in a bad way, they're talking about sodium chloride, like Morton's table salt, like the kind that's in a restaurant salt shaker. That is not the same. That isn't even really salt. That's like something completely different. So I want to tell a few stories about salt because it's just so important to understand, because it's gotten such a bad reputation, and there's some changes even with farming that you should be aware of. So I have a friend in Houston. He's a naturopath in North Houston, and he used to come to my office a lot and share like sometimes crazy things. And one time he showed up with a Pyrex dish, and I wish I had taken video of that, but that was like 15 years ago. And the Pyrex dish had this large, kind of meaty, it looked like a large chicken breast. It was this big, meaty, solid thing. And I was like, what is that? And he was like, it's fungus. And I always thought of fungus, I don't know why, but I thought of fungus kind of like cottage cheesy, because you kind of think of yeast, not, you think of something different than the solid mass. And he was like, no, it's fungus. So if you think about like taking a kombucha sliver, which is fungus, and he fed it the equivalent of 1 cup of sweet tea a month. So he put 1 cup of sweet tea in the Pyrex dish, and the sliver grew to this very meaty, more like a turkey breast. It had the color of a raw chicken or turkey breast. It was the size of more like a turkey breast than a chicken breast. And it took up this entire Pyrex dish. And I was just like, okay, not that anything against kombucha, but I would never drink it after seeing this, because I was like, that thing with 1 cup of sweet tea grew to this huge mass. So think about what you eat and drink daily that would be equivalent to 1 cup of sweet tea a month. I mean, rice, sugar, sweet tea, Cokes, beer, anything that turns to sugar would have fed this little mass of candida. The other thing that it made me realize is that I always thought, there's books, especially the Roman oncologist, that talks about cancer as a fungus, which is a book you can find online. But cancer is a fungus. If they were to do a biopsy and they say cancer, they're really saying you have a fungus. You have a fungus mass. And there's this information online. You can look at it elsewhere. And what feeds it is sugar. And a lot of times people go through cancer treatment and cancer protocols, and no one is saying change your diet. I went to Clayton, and I was in Alabama at a health conference, and there was this doctor, I don't remember his name, but it's funny because the natural health people have known this forever. If you have fungus, you have to get rid of it, because you are going to be one of the statistics that's 1 in 2 or now 2 in 3 Americans that end up with some type of cancer. And it's because you're feeding your fungus. Anyway, this doctor does this talk, and it was kind of a joke, because he was like, oh, if you have cancer, you need to alkalize, you need to fix your diet. And we're like, okay, everybody knew that already. He acted like he just came up with this theory, like it was his own invention, which that information's been around since the natural health cure centers in Europe in the 1800s. But anyway, so if sugar and anything that turns to sugar, which is bread, pasta, pizza, cookies, crackers, brownies, all that stuff feeds fungus. And so if someone's on an antifungal diet, they usually recommend not to eat those things because you don't want to try to get rid of fungus and feed it at the same time. So especially in the case of cancer, someone should really take this information seriously, change their diet, make sure to work on the candida. But anyway, back to the man with the fungus sample. I said, well, what are you going to do with that thing? And so he said, well, I'm going to go home and I'm going to dissect it, and then I'm going to see which of the more common cancer herbs and protocols and fungus stuff works the best. And I was like, oh, okay, well, let me know what happens. So he cut this big piece of fungus into a bunch of small pieces, and he put them in separate Pyrex dishes like a good chemist would do. And then he puts various things like cat's claw, pau d'arco, Himalayan salt, and colloidal silver, and all this other stuff that had been known to work for candida. And it was the Himalayan salt that had the fastest action. It killed it almost immediately. And I mean, the fungus shriveled up. Some of the other products absolutely did nothing. I think you said the colloidal silver, for instance, did nothing. I did another video on silver, and what I forgot to mention there is that I do not believe that colloidal silver is very effective personally. I think it depends on the source of the silver, but I do find that the molecular silvers and the ionic silvers are much more effective. But also love Himalayan salt for candida infections and for anything related to candida. Candida symptoms can be allergies, beer belly, a yeasty smell, like people that smell yeasty, if they go do an ion foot bath, their foot bath smells like beer or yeast, toenail fungus, fingernail fungus, jock itch, diapers rash, itchy skin, dandruff, colic, thrush, diaper rash. I mean, there's just like so many symptoms, but even like in a severe case, it can be like joint pain, it can be fatigue, it can be a breakdown of the immune system. And so candida should be taken seriously. I think everyone has some level of candida. The way you get candida is generally you get it from your mom. Like if your mom had candida when she got pregnant, the baby is usually born with candida and these recurrent ear infections and thrush and colic and diaper rash and cradle cap. But maybe it's because they took a strong antibiotic when they were 6 months old, and then they end up with the tubes in their ears, and it just ends up with this horrible cycle. But it could be after a series of steroids for acne. It could be after taking antibiotics for any reason. And, you know, so any of those things kill the friendly gut stuff, and then the bad stuff takes over. A history of yeast infections, even sometimes a history of UTIs, can indicate a candida infection. It's something that I would work with. So Hannah had a test that you can do at home, and the test is the urinate in a plastic bowl, like a Tupperware bowl, cover it with saran wrap, and put it in the refrigerator. And then the next day, if there's any kind of ring or buildup, that means you have a candida infection. And so, you know, like when you make a homemade soup or stew, there's like that waxy ring at the top. That will happen if you have candida. So an at-home test to know for sure is to just urinate in a bowl, cover and refrigerate overnight, and if there's any waxy buildup, you should do a candida cleanse, and I would recommend Himalayan salt. This box of Himalayan salt is a 2-pound box. It has a big bag of the salt chunks. This would last a family for a year or two. It's super cost effective. I also sell this, and it comes with a spray bottle because it's also good for irrigating the nose and sinuses if you have allergy issues. The Soleil is great to put in a neti pot instead of saline. It works actually much better. It's good for literally spraying and using for any kind of condition. It's also good for people that have like chronic conditions that are infections that just keep coming back. I've had a few cases of MRSA be resolved with Himalayan salt, where in one case the guy's finger was going to be amputated because they couldn't get the infection under control. And in those cases, I would recommend that you take it orally and also spray it topically. It just does so many things, and it's so cost effective to get rid of these problems and be healthy. And it's also good for a whole family to do at the same time, because not on candida so much, but on parasites, if one family member has parasites and the other families, it's almost like having lice and trying to treat one person in the family. That doesn't work out too good. And parasites are opportunists, so they'll leave the host and go find another host within the same family if everybody's not working on this together. So I hope you enjoy the information. Please like and subscribe. And if you want to order products, please let me know.